I am happy to introduce our presenter for today, Larry Hemley. Larry is a great friend. Larry is the president and founder of S.J. Hemley Marketing, a marketing agency that helps staffing agencies market themselves better for increased ROI. I know personally that Larry is a great colleague, a great friend, and he delivers results consistently for staffing. I don't know anyone who has been in this industry as long or who is as knowledgeable. So with that, Larry, I will pass it off to you.
Thanks so much, Sheila. First of all, one of the reasons that we wanted to do this session on email is because weekly we're dealing with questions where firms are asking, is email still effective? Is it dead? Is it dangerous to use? And the fact is that email has changed very dramatically since its launch. But we wanted to do the session to clear up some misconceptions and to understand how to better use email. So let's jump into that real quick. The fact is, when we looked at all this, we have all been used to junk mail. However, junk mail has turned into junk email. We're seeing so much of it. The average person is receiving over 100 junk emails a day, and that climbs exponentially based on your role in the company. So, for example, heads of sales and heads of recruiting and heads of the organization are receiving a great deal more of the information in order to try and drive them. However, it's also making them tune out more. So what do staffing firms typically use email for beyond its normal one-to-one contact? The fact is that people are using it for acquiring candidates or being able to share hot jobs or do skills marketing to clients, client prospecting campaigns, as well as expanding within existing clients, referrals, and reactivating past clients and more. There are so many uses for email, and that's part of its attractiveness. When we first started email in approximately 2001, email was a novelty, and we had all been mailing things, and the junk mail was off the charts. You used to walk to your inbox, which was an actual box, and very simply, it was filled with ridiculous amounts of junk mail. And so now we see that in our email. So we're going to talk today a little bit about the past as well as about where we need to go for the future. So one of the things that we hear a lot is danger. So people think that there's a danger to email, and there are some, but very few people are actually walking into these dangers. So like, for example, spam. The fact is there's certain things that you need to do to make sure that you're not listed as spam. Being a white label spammer is different than just being a general spammer. White label means that you've taken the precautions to make sure that your system sends it out as cleanly as possible. Work with your email provider to understand where they are. And if you're doing it internally from your own domain, which, by the way, is one of the dangers, because you can be blocked by candidates and clients. So some of these third-party tools keep you from actually having that happen. The email communication blocked by the email providers because someone is listing you as spam. Additionally, you can anger people. Well, I don't know too many people that get truly angered by the email they receive. I'm sure it's possible, and I'm sure that it does happen. We don't see it very often because of the fact that honestly, when we're looking at the content, we're trying to judge whether or not this is something that will be pertinent to the audience. Are we driving a behavior, etc.? Overall, people are concerned with the lack of effectiveness. In 2001, we saw open rates of 60, 70, 80%. We saw click-through rates of 20 and 30%. And now the one thing everybody should write down is that the open rate average for a good email is around 10%, which means that if you're doing 10 people, it's probably not going to work very well. But if you do 10,000, you now suddenly have the opportunity to get more effectiveness. So some of it is how we're doing things as much as when we do them and how we do them. Failure to close deals is a concern people have, and failure to generate ROI. The when you look at these various options, they are things to be concerned with, but at the same rate, they not doing anything also generates a failure to close deals and no ROI. So as we discussed, there have not been many innovations in email marketing. It is still pretty much the same as it used to be. Marketers are decreasing their use of overly designed emails and moving to more traditional. The designed emails were showing right away that they were marketing emails. And while there's still a use for them, the fact is that we're looking at how to be effective. And so if giving away that it's marketing is hurting your results, then we need to switch to something else. The traditional emails require very important pieces of information. Strong calls to action, personalization, clearly stated subject lines, and written both briefly and targeted. So I wanted to show an example. This was something that I created many, many years ago. And this is a designed email to kind of show what we were doing back in the day. We still do some of these, but they're generally support mechanisms. Now we're looking, and I hope that everyone can see this, and I know that you'll be able to get the PowerPoint. So I just wanted to share real quickly that when we talk about personalization, we've actually moved back to the traditional email, and we've turned to how much data can we put into the email to show that the salesperson or the recruiter or whomever is doing the outreach is actually writing a one-to-one email. That has become much more important. At first, we were using things like simply "Hi, John," or "Hi, Beth," or any other name. Sometimes we were putting it in the subject line, but we were limiting the different pieces to that. At first, that showed personalization and was quite effective. Today, that does not show personalization. Being able to break out by industry, to break out by the competitors that you work with of the client, to be able to put in information that you've learned about their company, and doing it in a very effective way that drives volume so that you can get those 10,000 people. So I wanted to show that real quickly is when you take the email and you apply this, you can see how quickly that this personalization really shows that you've done your homework. So, "Hi, John, I came across your information while doing some research on healthcare companies in Dallas. And we go through and we put down two of the competitors. They happen to also be two of the competitors that we're working with and that happen to be where John used to work. They happen to fit very nicely into what we're doing. We called out that we know that he's looking for a Tableau candidate because we did our research on their website. We go back to scheduling the appointment and saying that, repeating their name and showing that we want to use things around the company. All of this can be explained a little bit more clearly in just a moment. So when we talk about these different personalizations, we're looking at LinkedIn, we're looking at the job titles that are being published on their website, and we're trying to gather as much information as we can. Some of you may question, how far can you go with this? And you may be asking, well, what if nothing really adds value to the conversation? I received an email yesterday, and I won't call out who it was, but it was a fantastic email. And I had to question whether or not it was actually written one-to-one or a group email. Even someone like myself can't always tell. And I finally figured out it was indeed a mass email, but it was calling out my alma mater, the University of Houston, go Cougs. And very simply, when we looked at it, it started off with a subject line of "Go Cougars." And it went through my background at the University of Houston. What was interesting was the person ended the email with, "While I didn't go to the University of Houston, I was very impressed with your background there," et cetera, et cetera. I don't always recommend things like that, but at the same rate, it was a very, very good attempt at trying to personalize and really going over the top. The candidate messaging side of things, make sure you're segmenting your databases in order to target your messages to the right people. For example, in your database, you probably have Java developers. They're probably scattered across the country. Being able to go in and say, that sending a personalized hot jobs email that is all Java jobs that you have, and you're sending it out to this database, it makes it more pertinent to the reader that you are indeed knowing who they are and what they're looking for. And frankly, does not take much time to do. So we're talking about essentially a sales cadence. You're creating a series of emails that are tied along with phone calls, LinkedIn, in some cases, mailings in the past. What you're looking to do is show that you are active and that you're not going to give up. So many times we ask the question of how many times did you reach out to the client? And everyone likes to say a lot. I encourage all sales leaders, start qualifying the information and asking your sales team or your recruiting team, when you say a lot, what do you mean? Because their definition of a lot and yours are not going to be the same. So when you look at this, what we want to do is create a campaign that ensures that salespeople and recruiters are actually doing what's being required of them. And we're tying it all in through the ATS and the CRM respectively. So we're talking about how to increase efficiency and effectiveness for each and every person that's working with the system. Let me show you a little bit of what that workflow looks like. So when you start, you've written a series of emails, different social media posts that you're going to do. Additionally, you're going to go through a voicemail and you're going to prepare phone call scripts. When I prepare scripts, I do want to say one thing. I don't like to box salespeople into a script. I think that we've hired quality salespeople. We want them to be effective. I give them an idea of where the campaign is going so that they can follow it and put it into their own words. We go through and we launch email 1, we tie it to a social media post. On day 2, we're following up with a call. We might be leaving a voicemail. Day 3 or day 5, we're going into sending a second email, doing a second call, working on another voicemail. Once again, another call, another social touch. We launch on day 7 with another email and more calls. We go through and on day 9, we're trying to do more calls. And as we move into day 10, we're doing more email, more social media posts, and more calls. We're tying back to the emails, calls, and voicemail on day 12, and once again on day 14. So in 2 weeks, we have managed to reach out many times in order to drive effectiveness. We have customized every single email so that the person is reading it as if I am writing it to you each time. We are making it to where the recruiter or the salespeople doesn't have to remember to do certain things because these are popping up in the CRM or ATS to tell them what they need to do for the day. Overall, we are working at the effectiveness of all of these different features. So a lot of people ask me, well, I don't know how to do that research. I don't know how to apply these tactics. And very simply is that you can do it and it's not that hard. The first thing you're going to do is build a database. And so when we talk about that, most people look at their sales teams and say, create your target list. That's essentially what we're talking about here. So that database could be anywhere from 50 companies on up to 5,000 companies. There's as many ways to do this as you would like. You go into, and now we've got this database and we're going to research them. So we're going to go into the LinkedIns and Discovers and Zoom Info of the world. And we're going to try and pull information that will be relevant to show that we understand who the person is. We're going to add that information to Excel. So in my previous example that I showed, I pulled up John Smith from Blue Cross Blue Shield, put in his email address, put in that he's in Dallas, put in that Tenet Healthcare and Christus Healthcare are both of his past work experiences, and they happen to be people that we're working with. Tableau is the position that he was looking for in industry as healthcare. So this simple spreadsheet is what's going to actually make these cadences be rich with data. We go through and now it's time to utilize. We've created these emails. We've created our target database. We've brought all of this into a seamless approach. And now it's time to kick off and get rolling. So we're going to launch. And so when we launch, now it's time to stay with the recruiters and the salespeople, whichever is working on the campaign, and make sure that they're following through. It's not enough to trust that it's happening. I have met sales leaders that were micromanagers. I have met sales leaders that stayed out of people's hair. The fact is that there's a certain level of follow-up that's required with your team, and it's not a lot. Asking them weekly, what have they done and what have they completed, and ask them to show it to you in some form of reporting or to pull reporting out of the ATS or CRM as possible. But the fact is, when you're looking at this, if you're not examining the data, one of my very good friends stole this particular comment, I believe, from Carnegie, which is that inspect what you expect. And what that simply means is if you're going to create an expectation, then it is now time to figure out how to inspect it. Don't trust that it's going to be done. It's something that you need to follow up on. So once again, to go backwards, when we look at this email has been filled out by exactly the information that was in the spreadsheet. It has been personalized, and we recommend that there is no level of follow-up or level of data that's in here that shouldn't be reached. We've done campaigns where we've gotten on Facebook and found out likes and interests in order to be able to tailor that information to it. But the big thing that we get asked is about open rates and click-through rates. So as I mentioned before, 10% is about the standard open rate for a good execution. Anything below that is really not good, and anything above that starts working towards great. 15% is a very great open rate. Secondly is that we're looking at the click-through rates. And click-through rates are around 1 or 2% currently, and that is considered good. So when you look at this, one of the things you just have to keep in mind is the fact that when you're looking at an open rate, what you're talking about is, did the subject line get them to open the email? The more you don't think about what your audience wants, the more your subject lines will read in a way that are not pertinent to the client. So really take a look at that and figure out, but if your open rates are low, you're gonna want to work on your subject lines. If your open rates are good, 10% or greater, then now you look at your click-through rate. And with that click-through rate, what you're seeing is the fact that was your call to action strong enough to get them to take action? We've seen click-through rates that are in their teens and on up into the 20 percentile range based on the offers that we make. You may say we're a staffing firm. We don't have that many offers. The fact is you do. We've been working with staffing for over 20 years, and we've built solid offers for almost every, I'm going to take it from almost every to every single client that we've worked with and driven those rates. If you can drive 2% to 4%, you're doing a great job. If you're taking 0 on up to 2, once again, we're not looking to turn major needles. What we're trying to do is get more effective, and with each execution, you learn how to be more effective. I'm actually at a point right now that I'd love to open it up to questions, because we wanted to share a high level and let you ask questions about what we perceive as could be helpful to you.
Great.
Sheila, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Oh, sorry. Actually, there's one thing more that I want to do, the shameless plug for SJ Hemley. Excuse me real quickly as we fly to it. And I just want everyone to know, my background comes from working with staffing firms since 2000. Joined ComSys, which is now Experis, ran marketing for them until 2004, where I went to On Assignment and ran marketing both nationally and internationally for them, and joined Eliason Group in 2008. In 2012, we decided to start our own firm because we had been working with so many different large firms. We felt like that smaller and mid-sized firms didn't have the available people to be able to support their business. And so with 20 years of sales and marketing experience, We've been working with staffing and recruiting to help drive successful branding, sales training, lead generation, and more. So if there's anything we can help you with, we certainly want to do that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Larry. Yeah, just firsthand from Ceipal, Larry has been a great partner and a great asset, and we highly recommend his services. We do have a couple questions here. So the first is, how important is subject line versus the content of your email, and which one should you prioritize? And the follow-up
Great
question
question.
to that, the follow-up question to that is, what are your tips on effective subject lines?
So once again, when we talk about subject lines, what we're talking about is getting the open rates up. So, when we're talking about both of those stats, Sheila, one of the things that we're constantly working on is the fact that both of them are very important. However, I always point out, if they don't open it, then the click-through doesn't matter. So what we've got to look at is, how do we get those open rates up? I always focus my first energy on subject lines. How can I personalize them? How can I make them relevant to the client? The age-old approach of are you looking for talent? Not necessarily the best subject line unless it's a very specific type of email. And so we try and recommend to people that look at what the problem they're having is and get detailed with it. Don't turn around and make it a generalized thing. So what you're seeing in marketing right now is a move from generalism to specificity. So if you're saying, are you having trouble finding candidates? It's really, are you having trouble finding Java candidates in Dallas? Whatever the case may be, but your subject lines can be extremely personalized, and we really recommend you doing that.
Okay, great. That's wonderful.
And then, by the way, sorry, let me just answer on click-through rate. On click-through rate, it's all about the offer. Okay. Are you offering to share data with people? We'll be talking later today about a survey that we created for ourselves to be able to share with people. And that will be both a tool for sharing data, but also a lead generation tool. Most of you are going to want to see it, and many of you may have even cooperated in it. Just to follow on that note, everyone that cooperates in something like that gets the survey, and everyone else becomes a lead possibility.
That's right. So Larry, what time is that session again? So we have another session on the survey results in track 1, and it's at 11 a.m.
I think we're in track 3 at 11 to 11:30.
Track 3 from 11 to 11:30. So that's a really great opportunity to take a survey of the ATS market and talk about what Larry wanted to. But we do have one more question. I have read that the most effective emails are 4 sentences or less. And I've also read that lengthy emails are more effective as long as there are header breaks in the body. So what's your opinion on length and effectiveness?
Well, 4 sentences is entirely too short. I would tell you that, yes, you could do that. They have to be really hard hitting. And the problem with that is with 4 sentences, how hard hitting can you really be? I don't know it's so much about sentences. It is about length. So brevity is key. We will write email campaigns, and we'll write it, and it'll be a half page long as we're writing it. By the time we get to final, it's a quarter to an eighth of a page. It's really, you're trying to take out every unnecessary word. It's amazing that when you write something, you will see that the language that you're using, there are pieces that just don't need to be there. And so we recommend really highly reviewing that. As far as actual length, longer emails are better for follow-up with someone you've established some level of rapport with, so that you can carry your message. The shorter you can make it, and just in general, the brevity of it is the most important thing.
Okay, great. Our last question for today is, should we include graphics in our emails? So videos and visuals, or does that depersonalize and go against the revolution? So what's your advice there?
Yeah, it really, first of all, I am, being in marketing, we love, one of my bosses once said, we love pretty pictures. So I do agree with that. But if you'll notice in the email that I worked up as a mock-up for this session, there are no graphics in it. So it depends on if the graphic is adding value. If the graphic is not adding value, you should not use it. Secondly, and by the way, most people use graphics to cover up the fact that either they've gone too long with their email or they actually have gone too short. And so when you look at that, from our perspective, if it's necessary, then there's no problem using it. But you do need to be aware spam filters are looking for graphics and they are looking to try and quarantine you. The fact is that you have to kind of use your judgment on what you're doing to see if it's going to be effective.
Okay, great. I think those are all the questions that we had today. So
Perfect.
just to reiterate, everyone, thank you so much to Larry. This was a great presentation. Email marketing is definitely a hot issue. Everyone, Larry's slide deck will be released to all attendees in the session. So if you have any follow-up questions or you want to reference any information, you'll have that. If you have any questions that weren't answered, or if you need to contact Larry, just contact at ceipal.com and then we'll put you in touch. Larry, is there anything else you want to say before we sign off for the day?
No, I really appreciate everybody's time. I hope you're enjoying Ceipal Connect, and there's a lot of great sessions. So I'll just leave it on one part. Email is not killing your business. Using it well will help grow your business.
Exactly. Okay, wonderful. We encourage you to come to more sessions. Tweet hashtag Ceipal Connect, and you can win a raffle prize maybe, and we'll go from there. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so
Thanks,
much, Larry.
everyone.
Thank you to everyone. Bye.